Welcome to the post-Week 5 college football playoff projections. This week was really exciting because we did have a lot of change compared to the last couple weeks, especially at number one. At number one, we have Alabama. It was I had Georgia up there the whole time because, we just started the season and we didn't know what we had with these teams really playing weak non-conference early in the year. Alabama going up 28 immediately. Like the first 4 drives, I believe, was so much fun to watch. And Jalen Milroe, we'll get to it later in the show, but Jalen Milroe is my Heisman favorite at the moment. Number 1, he had a couple Heisman moments in the game. Ryan Williams looked phenomenal at receiver. I don't see how you couldn't put Bama at number 1 after how good they looked against Georgia. Number 2, I have Ohio State, and again, we don't go off of ranking, we go off of seeding, and I have Ohio State being the Big Ten champs, so Ohio State gets the number 2 spot. It'll be interesting, though, because Will Howard got hurt against Michigan State in East Lansing on Saturday, so if they don't have Will Howard and Devin Brown has to step in at quarterback, after his performance in the Cotton Bowl against Missouri last year, I'm skeptical of Devin Brown right now. And I thought Will Howard was getting a flow, especially with Jeremiah Smith. So we'll have to see the next couple weeks if Will Howard will be fine, if he's coming back, if Devin Brown has to take over. I think that's something people aren't talking about that really needs to be emphasized right now. Number 3, I have Miami. Now, the last couple weeks, I was questioning Miami just based off of their competition of play, who they played so far. Florida has looked awful. So that I didn't put much into that win. South Florida, after beating South Florida by 35, South Florida went to New Orleans to play Tulane and lost by 35 as well. So I'm questioning how good South Florida is. We know Florida's average at best. I mean, below average most likely. And then in a home game, it wasn't even on the road, in Miami, they barely beat Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has struggled. Virginia Tech lost to Rutgers, lost to Vanderbilt. Now they're 2-3. I question how good Miami really is. I mean, and you look at their schedule. They have Louisville is their best remaining opponent. They don't have to play Clemson until, at the earliest, would be the ACC title game. And Cam Ward had 3 turnovers, 2 picks and a fumble. So when Cam Ward was at Washington State, he turned the ball over a lot. I don't know. As Reese Davis always says, if you're not good enough, a loss will find you. And I kind of feel like that is the case for Miami. Now at 4, the Big 12 spot, I am kind of excited to see where the Big 12 spot goes because every week in my projections, it changes. Every week. This week I have BYU. Do I feel good about it? No, I don't feel good about it. But what team would I choose that I would feel good about? There's no answer. I mean, Arizona, after losing by 24 to Kansas State, 31-7 in the Little Apple, I don't feel good about Arizona. They look good Saturday, but is that a one-time thing? Is that continuous? Like, they came off a bye week. So, I mean, we know Arizona looks good off a bye week, but they only have one more bye week this year. So, I don't know how good Arizona is. Utah looked awful, and then we're going through a similar situation as last season where we thought Cam Rising was going to come back quick, and then it's kind of lingered, and Cam Rising's missed the last 3 games. Isaac Wilson doesn't look that great. I mean, he's a true freshman. Nobody should expect him to start and look fantastic, but this Utah team looks a lot like last year's, who was 8-4 or 7-5 type of team in the Pac-12. Kansas State looked awful, and I mean awful against BYU. They were controlling the ball the first couple drives, and then after that, it was just turnovers, and then everything went well for BYU. Iowa State's not great offensively. They are definitely a defensive-minded team. But I don't know. Their defense doesn't really stick out to me. Their offense struggles to move the ball. BYU right now is the team that looks the most well-rounded. So I don't feel good about it. I question how BYU will finish. But besides that, I mean, I have to have BYU right now. They've taken care of business so far. SMU looked really good this past week. BYU beat them in Dallas earlier in the season. So at the moment, I have BYU. Will that probably change next week? Yeah, it probably will. And then this is where we get into the rankings, the ranking part. So my third ranked team in the country right now but the 5 seed is Texas. Texas still looks good. They'll get Quinn Ewers back after the bye for the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma. Oklahoma has not looked good. They're facing a lot of injuries though. Michael Hawkins started his first game, so it'll be interesting to see how he does in such a big matchup in the Cotton Bowl. I think Texas, and outside of Oklahoma and then Georgia, Texas has a pretty easy schedule. For SEC terms, easy schedule. The schedule looks good for them to go 11-1. I mean 10-2 at worst, but most likely 11-1. 6, I have Tennessee. Just going strictly off of, they've beaten NC State, they've beaten Oklahoma. Like, they've faced more power conference opponents than a lot of these SEC teams that we're talking about. And Nico Iamaleava has done everything that Heupel's asked him to do. 7, I have Georgia. I still have hope. I'm not high on Carson Beck. I don't think he's a first-round draft pick. I don't think that he is the guy. I mean, when Stetson Bennett was at Georgia, people didn't think he was the guy, and yet he was taking them to national championships. And right now, Carson Beck can't even... I mean, they were down 4 touchdowns to Alabama. I mean, I turned the game off, and then I turned it back later to catch the end once they were good. But you cannot start off how Carson Beck did, how Georgia did. I mean, you're down 28. You can't expect to win that. It'll be interesting to see how Georgia goes from here. I think Georgia will be fine overall. Yeah. Carson Beck turned the ball over so much. I might consider Jaden Rashada as starting quarterback, a 5-star. Maybe give him a chance. I don't think Carson Beck has ever been the answer at quarterback for Georgia. Number 8, I have Oregon. The last 2 games, Oregon State, they had a bye week, and then now UCLA. Oregon's looked every part the team we thought they would in the offseason. Dylan Gabriel might be, right at the moment, a dark horse for Heisman. And all the rankings I've seen, I haven't seen Dylan Gabriel part of any of them. He has a great arm, and I think what he's shown at Oregon so far is his ability to be a dual threat quarterback. Mostly it was just him slinging the ball around the field at UCF, at Oklahoma, and he would run a little bit. I've seen Lanning use his legs more, which is really exciting to see. Number 9, I have Penn State. Drew Allaire has looked amazing. I liked the Wildcat that they used, that Kotelnicki used this past Saturday against Illinois with Tyler Warren at quarterback. Especially the first time, I noticed a little change they had. The first time they had a quarterback draw with Tyler Warren, and then the second one they did an RPO where he passed the ball, and it was basically the Illinois defense noticed the same exact setup as earlier in the game when they did a quarterback draw, and off that, the linebackers came up and blitzed, expecting that, and so he just threw it over the defense. That was a terrific execution by the Penn State offense that needs to be highlighted at least, and I think something as little as that shows the change from last year to this year with how Penn State's gone and changed their offense. Is beautiful. Michigan, I love to see they started off really hot against Minnesota. Same game plan, run, pass whenever we want to, I guess. Alex Orji had 86 passing yards. So that is that is a total of 118 passing yards the last 2 games in wins against USC and Minnesota. It is, and Khalil Mullings. I think one thing to point out is Donovan Edwards is on the cover of EA College Football 25. Everybody expected him to be a Heisman candidate, be the starting running back, where Sharon Moore changed it up and started Khalil Mullings, and Mullings is looking like the guy right now at running back for Michigan, with a little bit of change up with Donovan Edwards. So it'll be interesting to see how long Michigan can ride the run game, just run, and try to make people stop it, Number 11 this week, I have Missouri. The 11 spot is another one I think that could change every week. Missouri has Texas A&M at Kyle Field this Saturday, the only top 25 matchup. So it'll be very interesting to see if they can go into a hostile environment and take care of business, especially since the last couple weeks they struggle against Vandy. It'll be interesting to see if they can adjust and if they can come out of College Station with a win on Saturday. The first 2 teams I have out are Ole Miss. I might be overreacting on the Ole Miss loss. Jackson Dart looked phenomenal. His yards per attempt were 9.7, and he had a 67% completion percentage on Saturday with 261 passing yards and a passing touchdown. He had a good game against one of the best defenses in the country. In my Heisman watch, I slid him down 2 spots to 3. I still think he's definitely in the running for Heisman. I think Ole Miss will be fine. They only scored 17 points. I know Kentucky has a great defensive line especially. I would like to see them score at least upper 20s, low 30s in those type of games to show that how dominant they could be, and they could score 40 against other defenses in the SEC. So that's not really alarming for me. I think Ole Miss will probably end up in the playoff. I might be overreacting, like I said, but for now, I think they'll be fine. They just have to get back to work and continue to win games. And then every week, I love the group of 5 spot, and it gets more interesting. I still have UNLV. I'm sure I've been consistent with UNLV. Sluka, like I've brought up in the past, has a 44% completion percentage. It was awful. And I would like to point out all offseason until I think the week before the start of the season, Malik Williams was going to be the starter. And watching him Saturday put up 59 against Fresno makes me question why he wasn't all along. Like, if they started Malik Williams against Kansas, I think they probably blow them out. Their defense has done a great job. So in Houston, they held Houston to 7 points. I mean, what held them back from blowing them out by even more if they have a quarterback who can complete passes? He was 13 for 16 on Saturday. Sluka probably would have been 7 for 16 or 6 for 16. I mean, Jalen Catalon right now leads the nation in interceptions with 4, or he's tied for first with 4 interceptions in the nation. Again, I brought him up. I'm a big fan of Woodard and Catalan on that UNLV defense, 2 Arkansas transfers. I cannot wait until they play Boise. Boise, right now in my rankings, I have UNLV 23, Boise 24. I think UNLV is the better team. Watching Brendan Marion's offense is so much fun. Boise has Ashton Jeanty, which might be the difference maker in this. I don't know. I think it might be 50-50. I would give UNLV the edge right now. Thankfully, we see them play in a couple weeks, and then they could have a rematch in the Mountain West title game, which would really be for all the chips. Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. So we'll take a little break right now, and then on the back end, on segment B, I'll have some Heisman watch. All right, welcome back to Jet and Noosh. I would love to do a Heisman watch and then a college football preview for the upcoming week. I think we'll skip the preview this week because, like I said, there's only one top 25 matchup, and it's number 9 Missouri against number 25 Texas A&M. It'll be a really interesting game, but outside of that, there wasn't much to highlight this week. So for the Daily Evergreen paper, I just did like games that Washington State fans could be interested in to change it up a little bit. But next week, we'll add an extra segment and do a preview. But this week, I did want to do Heisman watch. And like I said earlier, number 1 is Jalen Milroe. Every game this year, he's had at least 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns. He had a couple Heisman moments against Georgia on Saturday, and his stats are pretty impressive. He has the 5th best QBR with an 87.6, and he has a touchdown to interception ratio of 10-1, which is much better than a lot of the other Heisman candidates, such as Cam Ward. Cam Ward threw 2 interceptions. I think he has a 4.5-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And Jackson Dart, I believe, has a 6.5-1 touchdown to interception ratio. I'll get to that later. Milroe looks unstoppable with both his arm and his legs, and I think that might be the slight difference between him and Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty looks phenomenal. I'm not trying to take anything away from Jeanty, but Jeanty could be the unanimous number 1, the Heisman winner, if he can catch balls out of the backfield. All they're having him do is run. And like I said, he's way better than any other running back in college football right now. No question. But he's not catching the ball out of the backfield. His game is pretty one-dimensional now. That one-dimensional part of his game is... I mean, if you'd put him in a video game, him running the ball would be a 99. Catching the ball would probably be like an 80. I would like to see Danielson have Maddox Madsen throw Ashton Jeanty the ball a little more. There were a couple drops against Washington State with that receiving core. So I would center my team around Jeanty and kind of just have a try to stop him mentality, because nobody can. I mean, Oregon hasn't. Washington State hasn't. They only have one more power conference opponent in Oregon State left, and that is November 30th. That is at the end of the year. Last game. Until then, all they have is UNLV's defense has been pretty stout, but he's going to have field days against teams like Utah State, Colorado State, Wyoming. All those teams in the Mountain West are going to struggle mightily trying to stop Jeanty. I have a continuation going back to Milroe. Alabama is the number 1 team in the country. The best player on the best team, Jalen Milroe, and his connection with Ryan Williams is phenomenal. So going to number 2, I have Jeanty. Going into some more stats with that is G&T has 160. I mean, that is almost a whole game already through 4. He has 160 more rushing yards than the next running back in college football. He has 845 rushing yards on 82 carries. That is a 10.3 yards per carry average. And next is 685 rushing yards, like I said. Ashton G&T is going to put up historic numbers. He has 13 rushing touchdowns right now through 4 games. I mean, if he continues that, that's 36 to 38 rushing touchdowns this season. That'd be an all-time record. I don't even know what more to say. He could get 2,500 rushing yards if he keeps this pace up. I bet he gets 2,000, which we don't see anymore. And he can have 22, 23, 100. I mean, I don't know what to say besides he's going to have a historic year, and it'll be so much fun to watch him the next 8 games. Number 3, I have Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart was my Heisman favorite last week. He still leads the country in passing yards with 1,815. His QBR is 7th with an 86.5, and he has 13 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He still put up great numbers. He needs that moment, that Heisman moment for sure that you'd see on all the highlights. But nobody's stats stack up to him at the quarterback position. Jackson Dart has a real case to be number 1, but G&T has been undeniable for me. Jalen Milroe, like I said, best player on the best team. He's doing it on the ground as well. Dart hasn't done it on the ground, so Dart's passing stats are going to look better than Milroe's, but Milroe's going to be a better overall, well-rounded player. So I have Dart 3. Ward is 4. I was considering him or Travis Hunter at 4. I just can't get out of my head Cam Ward's 3 turnovers against Virginia Tech. Struggling against an average ACC team. Virginia Tech has a great defense. Everything about Miami I'm kind of skeptical about. Now, he still has great stats. He's 2nd in QBR with a 92.7 behind Navy's quarterback Blake Horvath, who, if Navy continues to play great, if they go win the American, Blake Horvath at this rate might be a Heisman candidate. I mean, he has the best QBR. He is 1st in rushing now by a quarterback, which, again, in the Navy offense isn't surprising, but that's here nor there. Ward fell from 2nd to 4th in this week's Heisman watch, like I said, due to turning the ball over 3 times. 2 picks, 1 fumble. When he was at Washington State, he had a lot of turnovers, especially fumbling the ball. His ball handling needs a lot of work. It still does. It did at Incarnate Word. It did at Washington State, and it still does at Miami. I would like to see the offensive coordinator try to work with that, because really it's a lot of just carrying the ball with one hand, swinging it out. Just have 2 hands on the ball. He's too nonchalant. A lot of people like to play it off as him being cool and calm. He needs to care a little more about ball security. That'd be nice to see. And then number 5, I have Travis Hunter. My issue with Hunter is he doesn't stand out at any position. I mean, when we saw Devontae Smith win the Heisman at receiver, he was clearly the best receiver. His highlights showed that. His stats showed that. So I would like to see Travis Hunter break out at one position. He can continue to do both. Right now, he's 5th in the country in receiving yards with 561, and he has a 12.2 average on yards per reception. That's good. It's not great. He has 2 interceptions. I mean, looking at his numbers, nothing else really stands out. Just because you play on both sides does not make you the best player. It's still impressive. He still has good highlights. I would just like to see stats back that up. So thank you for tuning in this week on the post week 5 side of things. And I hope you come back next week. So thank you.